Good morning.
Good morning,
It's
Katie.
time. It's that time. Good morning,
Yes.
Janice. Good morning, everybody. It's Kate Richburg and Janice Parsons live from beadshop.com. If we're on, it must be a
Yes.
Wednesday.
It is.
Wednesday at, 10:30-ish
Ish.
Pacific time. We always like to give you guys a little bit of a wait, we're worth waiting for. Just a couple of minutes.
We actually do try to get on time,
We do.
but then I go, oh, I forgot to turn my phone off. Oh, I
Right.
forgot the cutters.
Oh, I've got to put on lipstick.
I forgot
See?
lipstick.
Well, it's all right. Don't worry.
Okay.
You look great.
Thank you. Thank
So
you.
you just got back from a trip?
I did. I went back to
Yeah.
Virginia.
Oh, that's great.
To see little Eli
Yeah.
and my daughter.
With the fam.
Yeah.
That's great.
Very pretty. I had nice weather.
Oh,
I missed
good.
you guys.
We missed you too.
But,
And, it was a fast week without Janice,
Yeah.
but we got so many great new things in. You've been doing some new product ordering,
Yes.
which is really
Yes.
exciting. We're going to share some of that stuff with you. Gracie, just holler out if we.
Melanie says hi, Geeta.
Hey, you guys!
Hi.
From Woodstock, Illinois. Let's see.
Hello.
Oh, Gwen says hello to all three of us.
Hi, Mommy.
Hi, Mama.
Hi,
Twilla.
Mama Gwen.
Sylvia, Kathy.
Sylvia, is that Sylvia
Dee.
from Paris?
Let me see here.
Mm.
She says Southern Alabama.
Oh, Southern Alabama. Well, we also have a Sylvia from Paris.
So near,
So I'm sure
so far.
they're both exotic
Yes.
locales.
Yes.
It's so
Drea
true.
says hi, and Christine says hi.
Hi,
And Trudy,
everybody.
everyone just keeps saying hi.
Oh,
So
good
when
morning,
I was
good
in
morning.
Virginia, I got to spend time with Drea.
Yes,
doing
you
customer
did.
service, and it was really fun.
Oh,
and,
that's great.
we decided on projects we're going to work on and updates. She's great because she's the one who gets all the, hey, I can't get my micro seal on through the pearls.
Yeah.
So I promised her I would just say to everyone out there making a poetry, you need a flexible eye needle.
You do, and we've talked about that in
Right,
the
Drea?
poetry. In the poetry, right? So Drea doesn't text you right now. She's texting, going,
Yeah.
"Don't forget."
Yeah.
In our poetry Facebook Live that we did, we talked about comparing the two, the flexible eye
Right.
and the flexible eye needles and stuff. And so you can go back and watch that one. Yes, Drea is part of her self-dubbed, which I thought was awesome, the beadshop.com customer happiness team.
Yes.
Which is great.
Yes.
So she, along with, sometimes you guys get to also communicate with our shipping and fulfillment department, which is awesome. So all of us are really, really stoked that you guys email in and send us pictures and photos. We love it.
Right.
And speaking of,
Yes.
I've got some great things to
Oh,
share
good,
this
good.
week before we get into all of this excitement. So first I wanted to share, so we have a customer, Helena, and she's from Finland, and I've talked to you about her before. She gets together with her
friends,
ladies, her
yeah.
friends, and they watch us. She doesn't have access to Facebook, so she doesn't really watch us live, but she also watches us later on our YouTube channel or right on our webpage at beadshop.com.
That's great. That's great.
So what she did was she sent me some pretty awesome photos. She likes to use, she does some kind of historic research, and since she lives in Finland, a lot of kind of the Scandinavian designs and Baltic designs really speak to her. So she and her crew are doing a lot of looming, and she sent them on our Facebook Live, our Free Tip Friday, last Friday. We talked about symbols and talismans and stuff like that. So she's incorporated a lot of kind of native, kind of Scandinavian symbols into her work. So she sent, and I'll show you if you can see these guys here. Gracie, if you can see those pretty well. This is her wrap bracelet. She did a wrap
Wow.
with kind of a traditional motif, and you can really see the traditional motif in this loomed piece here, and it's really great. I just love how the simplicity of these kind of traditional designs really show up nicely in the looming. And then this, I showed you this earlier. This is a cool little snap of Helena's workspace, and you can see there's some of her things there. But since she lives in Finland, she hasn't ordered one of our deep dish project trays. But her husband went and Googled the dimensions and made her very own
Amazing.
handmade deep dish project tray.
That's
So
great.
this is her little workspace. You can see there's her charted designs and her pieces. I just love seeing people's
Yeah.
workspaces. So you guys, if you have some workspace photos, especially for next week, we're doing our jewelry repair. I think that would be a great thing to share. If you have photos of your workspace you want to share, we'd love to see them.
Speaking of Finland, did you watch The Bachelor?
No, I don't watch The Bachelor, but maybe I should.
The last few episodes were in Finland, and
Really?
I was just
It's
like,
beautiful.
I'm ready to
We're
come
ready.
visit.
Road trip.
Oh, but again, the symbolism, the motifs, the color, just everything.
It's really beautiful.
It's beautiful.
Wow.
It's just,
Yeah, and you can see these charts like that. I mean, look at
Yeah.
how beautiful, and she's just charted them right out
Yeah.
here. So I think it's really, really great. We also have, I wanted to share, we got one more photo from Melanie. I believe this was Melanie's.
yes.
So Melanie, you sent us a couple, you did a great trail ride bracelet like Janice's,
Yes.
the ever popular trail ride, but you also did this great wrap bracelet in browns and pinks. And this, let me make sure that my there we go, I'm all the way up here. The browns and pinks really spoke to me.
Yes.
And I think it's a colorway that I don't always visit. But this really took me back to when I was a kid. I just loved it so much. My mom will know this story. My mom's watching. We used to have an ice cream parlor in Hollister, California, where my parents lived. And, of course, like all ice cream parlors, well, not all of them, but it had a very pink, brown, kind of old-fashioned kind of feel to it with, like, those red chairs and stuff. And whenever I see this colorway, that sense memory comes right back to me.
Well, it's strawberry and chocolate ice cream.
Yeah, that Neapolitan,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so it really does evoke, a really good lesson to evoke, not only do you have the overall design of the piece, but the colors that you use in your pieces can
Right.
be really, really powerful.
Yes. Yes.
Melanie says thanks.
Yeah, it's really
We
great.
love
We
it.
love
We
it.
really
We love
love
it.
it.
And my mom was also reading your Tricks of the Trade handout,
Oh,
and she was blown away.
wow.
And
Thank you, Gwen.
Yeah, the color. So if you guys are looking for some color and pattern inspiration, we've said it before, but we'll say it again, that Tricks of the Trade is a great
Would
way.
you just show them how
Yeah,
to find it?
I will.
So you go to the website.
So let's go to beadshop.com, and we'll go here to our website, our front page.
Now, we've done some updating of the search tool
We have
for projects.
for
It's
projects.
not perfect. For those of you out there who, like me, are trying to find a project, we can't search yet by the name of the sample.
Whoops, if I spell it right, though.
But we can now, if you wanted to find, like, let's say prairie, you can put in the word prairie, but then you have to hit the return.
Yeah, so here's our search right up here. So like Janice was saying, if we put in prairie.
P-R-A.
Yeah. Wait a minute, I've got to turn it towards
Yeah,
me.
P-R-A-I-R-I-E.
I-R.
Yeah, prairie. There you go.
There we go. Jeez Louise.
Okay.
Whoops.
Did you spell it right?
Maybe I can't frickin' spell.
I have the wrong glasses on.
P-A-R. What are we doing?
No, you have
Prairie.
P-A-R. P-R-A. P-R-A.
What? Who was this?
R-I-E. P-R.
God, you would think that's not right. That's why I have these up. Oh my gosh, I am
Okay,
so.
put in something else.
Let me put in something I can spell.
Put in mosaic. M-O-S.
My mom on the
Okay.
other side of the camera is
Okay.
just weeping, going,
Yeah.
Katie
Okay,
never knew
so-
how to spell.
So you put in mosaic, which is
All
the
right.
name of the bulk
We did
name
in the
of a
keyword.
project,
And
then
so it
you
goes
hit
mosaic
return,
4
and
wrap.
then there's mosaic 4 wrap,
Oh.
which will then take you to
I'm
all of
crying.
the samples. Right.
But we were originally saying
Right.
tricks of the
so
trade.
Put in, look, so let's put in
That I know how to
that-
spell.
Okay, and I think the class handouts will automatically. So, tricks of the trade, T-R-A-D-E.
A-D-E, right?
And then you hit return.
That comes
there it
in.
is. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And
And
so you
then
can see, bam, it just comes up right
okay.
here.
And this is the,
And you can download the PDF
Right.
right there.
all right.
So it's a really great way. I'm still crying.
If you can spell.
If you can spell. Spelling's hard. Thank God for spell check. But it's a really great way, I think, to just download it, save the PDF, save it to your e-reader, or my mom, she just printed it out. She's putting them in a book. She's making a beadshop.com
Well, this
book
was
for
like
her own.
we at one time had a video on it.
Yeah, it's really it's a really amazing, a Janice tome, which is no less than probably, I don't know,
20 pages.
Yeah, well, this one's a little bit shorter, but there's so much. There's so much info in here.
It's also about patterning and
coloring, taking your color
colors.
inspiration.
Right.
So, Melanie, your piece really resonated with me, and
Yes.
it really kind of started me thinking about color.
She called it Pink Lady.
I love it.
That's a
She
great-
used 2mm leather. Hold on, people. 2mm leather and regular Ceylon to ladder and macrame because
yeah.
people had questions about her ingredients.
Oh,
Yes.
that's great. Now, the last thing you guys may have seen from, I think it was last week, it was Rebecca who emailed in, and she showed us this photo of the loomed piece that she did with our Padres in the 1mm leather, but she said she would show us how she did the end. And so the end, you can see she wove just some beads through there to close it, and she has a really nice ending. This photo, can you see how
the
she
hooks.
used just regular hook and eyes?
Yeah.
And she
Yeah.
sewed those in there.
So
it's
it really became a design element. It was.
yeah, it was a really nice. Whoops, why turn
And
that?
did the hooks just go into the loops of the cord?
No, it looks like the other half is the eye part
Okay.
of the hook and eye. But you can see how she's kind of stitched through the leather and closed all those off. So it was a really great way of finishing
Yeah.
it. And lastly, we want to give a shout out to our worldwide beading community that we're forming here. We had a great note in one of our orders from Lisa from Australia, and she said, "Hi girls, that's you and me, we're the girls," which
Okay.
is awesome. I wanted to say how much I love your Facebook videos. I live in a smaller town a few hours outside Sydney, Australia, and with no local bead store, and finding your site has been a real joy. So keep up the real work and wonderful inspiration.
That's
Love
great.
it, Lisa.
That's
So
great.
thank you, Lisa, and thank all of you guys for watching us all around the world. It's
Yeah,
really
it's
been
amazing.
amazing how we're making this bead world smaller and smaller. And we appreciate your comments, your shares, your support. You know, we're just a small business here in Redwood City, California,
Yep.
and it's really cool to be creative and to connect creatively with all of you all over the world.
It feels like we're all sitting here together.
Yeah, we're all on the same
yeah,
team. It's
yeah.
like when we used to have our brick and mortar
That's
store.
right,
You
that's
know,
right.
we could chat over the bead counter. So
Right.
that's kind of how we look at this time. All right, so Grace, without further ado, shall we? Any
Yes.
other questions we need to answer?
No, just a lot of nice comments. I think it was Kathy. She said that she's printed out almost our whole website. She has a big binder full of all of our handouts.
Oh, that's so
And then
great.
Geetag chimed in that she also has
Oh, that's
the
great.
majority of our website printed
That's
out.
great.
Well, when
Well-
we had the shop, people would come in with their binders with the sleeves, and they'd have all of the
All their class
the
handouts.
the
yeah.
brochures for the schedules,
Yeah.
Everything.
It was really,
It was-
yeah.
yeah.
So it's fun to be able to create this community again. We're really, really enjoying it.
Melanie, sorry to interrupt. She
Oh.
says, I love this and look forward to it every Wednesday. She says, can we have a retreat with you?
Oh, we
Yeah.
got some plans in the works.
Yeah.
That we need. It's on our meeting agenda.
Yep.
So we'll be talking
keep you
about
posted.
that. We'll keep you posted.
We'll keep you posted.
So we've got some new stuff coming in, or
Yes,
It's
in.
in.
Yeah.
So, and it all really relates to what we're doing today. The fantastic, I don't even know why I'm not wearing it. I'm going to put this on. The off the cuff cuff.
Right.
And if you go, you guys, you'll be able to find this. So it was linked in our newsletter this morning. The project is called Off the Cuff. And if you go onto our Facebook Live or our project page, you'll see Off the Cuff. And there's a link to the PDF handout, which you did an amazing job on. It's
Oh,
really great.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
it's really, you'll have a great step-by-step. But in a few, I'm going to go over some of the finer points of doing this.
Great.
But the real, I don't know, the essential building block for this piece, I guess, we've talked about it a long time getting them in, is bugle beads.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've gotten a lot of new bugles in. And so maybe for some people maybe are not as familiar with the bugle bead. So talk a little bit about these guys, JP.
Well, the shape, which is a long, do you want to give me a few of these?
Yeah, you could have those, and there's some here in the dish.
Oh yeah, so they originally started out being made in Czechoslovakia, and today we have we have two kinds. We have the Czech bugle and the Miyuki, which is from Japan. The Czech bugle is less consistent in size. Like when you're making something like off the cuff, you'll find that a few of the bugles might be
a little
shorter,
a little shorter.
Whereas with the Miyuki, they're like
spot on,
consistent. The problem with the Miyuki is that you're not going to get them in a 12 millimeter. They make them in the 6 millimeter, which is called the 2, or they make them in the 3 millimeter, which is called the Bugle 1.
I've got some smaller ones right
and the colors coincide with the Miyuki
seed beads.
So like, if this is a 2001, you can get that color also in a Tyla, in an 11-aught, in an 8-aught. It's not as consistent with the Czech. So we're not going to be bringing in a lot of the Czech bugles, except I love the length.
And the finishes.
The finishes
on these are fantastic.
So we will get a few more colors. They're on order. The other way bugles come is they come twisted. You can, that we have like we're always going for the matte metallics, but you can get these in crystal silver line, you can get them in clear AB, just like every other seed bead. You can get them in a host of colors and finishes. You can get them with silver with a clear on the outside, so those would be called silver line.
And with all of these, I love the way that they really pick up. I'm going to put this right there.
I've always loved
how they pick
bugles.
up the metals, the metal beads too.
So in the old vintage clothing, you would see a lot of bugle beads. Usually, like this size is with the size that was beaded on a dress, like in jet. Remember those days?
I do.
And some of the bugles also have sides like a rocaille, so they pick up more light. We're just really focused on the matte metallic. That's just my favorite. So
there you have it.
But if someone out there is saying, well, I wish you would carry this, and this, let us know, because this is just dipping our toes in the bugles.
And I pulled these two out.
Yeah.
Just
talk about those a little bit.
Because it's a bugle. I think that the shape,
the shape is amazing.
The shape of the bugle. And we have all kinds of plans for these bugles, laddering, these bugles will ladder beautifully. But I also wanted to point out these Czech beads that we carry that are bugle-esque.
Well, they are a bugle. They're a bit, they're larger, they have a bigger hole diameter, they're heavier. But this is from a special vendor that just does basically aged Picasso. So,
and what's the name of this one? This one is
aged wampum, and it's a green turquoise. This is the aged wampum, and it's multi Picasso.
This
I'm
one's crazy.
You love these,
Nina
yeah.
says she loves them too. And didn't you use these in your 7-Wrap, Janice?
Yes. I used the smaller. Didn't I use the smaller?
This.
I used one of these.
Yeah.
I think you used the multi.
If it's been more than a week,
we don't know. But look at how.
Yes,
oh,
I did use it in the Tahoe 7-Wrap.
Yeah.
But they're wonderful. You can get the 1 millimeter leather through that one. Yeah. So, I've always loved bugles, and I've just been. It's taken me time to get them back in again. So.
Mimi also says she uses the wampum in her Odyssey.
Oh yes.
Right.
Yes.
And this,
No, go ahead.
This is a question unrelated to bugles, but related to our ceramic dishes.
Mm-hmm.
Someone's interested in learning where we get them because she likes them so much.
Oh, you know,
Look at the back, Cost Plus,
Cost
World,
Plus
Market.
World Market right here. And you know what you could also do if you have a restaurant supply
Yes.
in your town. One of the things that we used to do in our brick and mortar store, we had all of our beads out in these little tins. And so
Right.
we had those, I think that did come from Cost Plus way back in the day.
Well, before it became World Market,
Right,
it was
right,
called Cost Plus.
right.
So yes, 99 cents.
Yes. But also your Japanese stores, like
Yeah.
if you get little, I love these little nice
You
little
can
things.
also get them at Sur La Table, but I don't
Ah.
know if they're going to be 99 cents.
No.
But they're all over. But they do what's nice about them when you're doing a project is it feels a little bit like you're art directing a photo shoot,
Right.
and you look at your beads, and it's
You
it's
can see
nice.
everything.
It's nice. It's like prepping for a dinner. There's
Yeah.
something very Julia
Your
Childs
mise
about
en
it.
place, if
Yes,
you will.
exactly,
Yes.
And
exactly.
Julie says she got hers at Crate and Barrel.
Oh
great.
yeah, yeah.
So I wanted to point these out, Grace, and I'll push it towards you just so you can see, and then this will kind of lead in to when we get, though I do want Janice to share a couple more products there. You can see the different bugles we have here. Today we're going to be using these bugle beads on wire, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. But you can see this is our head pin, our 22 gauge head pin,
Eye
I
pin
believe.
or head pin?
Or,
Eye pin.
Head pin.
Oh, you've got them on. A head
I've got them
pin.
on
Okay.
head pins. And so that fits really, really well right on
Right.
those bugles. The 24 gauge head pins, or eye pins if you were doing a cuff project, will fit these smaller Japanese beads. The Japanese beads have smaller holes than the Czech beads do. So I wouldn't be able to get these. I can get them on this heavier wire, but it's a tight fit, so these will probably split. So the 24 gauge is what we want to use with those. But these Czech go perfectly on the 22 or 20 gauge, will work just fine with those. So you also have, speaking of wire, Janice,
Yes.
what we're going to be doing with some of these bugles as well.
Yes, yes, is one of our upcoming projects is going to be memory wire.
Yeah,
And so
and talk about throwback.
right,
We
I
love
know,
memory
I know.
wire.
So we're going to be doing. It's in a couple of weeks, isn't it? Like 3 weeks.
Yeah, something like that.
So we got in the memory wire. First we had it in the silver. Now we're carrying it in the 4 flavors in the 2 1/4 diameter, and it fits most wrists. It'll expand or get a little
Contract a little
smaller.
bit.
But again, we'd love to know if there's a favorite size that you would like us to carry. And then also we got in the memory wire.
And this is so important.
Right. And I don't know really what you know about wire. Ask me about thread. I'm not a wire person. But I did learn that this cutter made by Xuron, which is the memory wire cutter, will cut up to 2 millimeter half hard or hard wire.
I cut.
So it's really like
It's a workhorse. Well, we
Yeah.
have the one from Bead Shop days, I think, back in our tool bin.
right. It's still good.
I use this cutter not only for memory wire, you guys, but if I'm cutting heavy gauge, like 12 gauge, 10 gauge, if I'm making bangles or things like that when I'm
Right.
doing my metalsmithing work, not only does this cut it well, but it also cuts it flush.
Right.
So this is a great, I love our Xuron Maxi Shear.
Right.
But this guy, if you're just lopping off that wire and lopping off that memory wire, this is the tool you want to use. If you use your good cutter on this memory wire, you're going to leave a little hole, a memory wire shaped hole on the heads of this. So make sure you use the right cutter for that memory wire.
Right. Right.
So it won't all end in tears.
Now honestly, I have used hardware store cutters,
Which you
and
could.
they're okay, but they will leave the end of the wire kind of sharp. So I found that I had to then get out an emery board
Right, and file.
and file it. So
Yeah.
this solves all of that, and it's got a nice spring in it, so it just springs back.
Yeah.
It's just a nice feel
So
to it.
and they're made in the USA,
Yeah.
which is cool. It's
Yeah.
a US tool.
Kelly
Okay.
says she has a 5.5-inch wrist, so she said she would love a smaller diameter memory wire. She
Okay.
said they're hard to find.
Okay. Well, we can, I think it's the 1.75 is what we would, so, okay, we'll get that in, I promise, okay?
Okay, so
All right.
I'm going to come around and let's get this show on the road.
Okay.
And Janice, while I'm coming around,
Okay. So
Gracie-
you're going to use the Easy Bracelet Mini when you're doing this, aren't you?
I
Or
can,
you
yeah,
can?
and I'll show you how it measures on this. But we've got also a great new tool for measuring.
Right, so last week we actually made a nice towel, a towel form, like the inside of a towel, just the tube, for multi-wrap bracelets. But with summer coming up and you want to take projects and go away on like a vacation, this is a wonderful little tool because it's not so great for multi-wrap bracelets unless you do one wrap at a time.
Right, so you can
Which
see
is
that
fine.
length.
But this is great for like a single wrap, like we could use it today because we'll know where the button sits is where it's going to
where the-
rest. It's just easy to take with you, it's flat, it's affordable, and then you just, seam it up, you take the adhesive off, and it's in both inches and
Yeah, and
millimeters. So if you were going to have like a group of gals, or you wanted to make gifts for holidays and you measuring, this is just a great little
It's
tool.
fast. And so let me show you.
Didn't you use this a lot when you had your shop?
Yeah, I did. And I find that, and I think then it may not have had the inches and millimeters on
Maybe,
it together,
maybe.
which is really helpful, I think. The way that I use this for this cuff, just so you can see how it measures, and it's kind of like if any of you have ever made rings or used ring sizers, these are all tapered for the sizing. So if I slide that on, the cuff you can see is tapered, right? So we want to take a look actually when we turn it. Actually, I'll turn it to the front. When we turn it to the front, I can see, like Janice says, where that button actually sits, and that button sits right at the 7 inches. So I can be confident knowing that this bracelet, this cuff, will fit a 7-inch wrist. But it's a good way to just, it's a quick, as you're going along too, you can just slide this on. We're going to be doing some more stringing projects with stringing wire,
Stretch Magic.
Stretch
it
Magic,
works
things
great.
like that.
Yeah.
So it's a really helpful tool to just have in your little tool arsenal.
And if you were making something like poetry, which had tiny pearls, it would work for that because they're small enough.
Right, and it
Yeah.
would kind of bunch up. You'd bunch
Yes,
it all up
yes,
together. Yeah,
yes.
makes sense. Okay, Gracie, can you see me okay? I can move around a little bit maybe, or are you all right? You good? Okay.
She said,
So,
Melanie's wondering if we sell these. She said, sorry, I missed it.
We do. If you go, fastest way, Melanie, to find them is go to our Just In category, and I believe they're listed there with all the Just-Ins. If not, they're there with tools. Thank you, Gita, in advance for...
Actually, Drea posted
Oh,
right
thank
after
you,
Gita,
Drea.
and they had a little banter
Bam.
back and forth saying, why does she even bother? Because Gita's so quick.
Yeah.
She is on it. Thanks, you guys. So, this cuff, we have a cuff in our class handouts. We have a cuff called Music Cuff. And that was a cuff that Brittany's
right.
piece, right? That Brittany
Right.
did. And it really, I was looking through our class handouts one day, and it was really a piece that spoke to me, A, because it had wire, and B, because it had wire, okay? And I thought, well, and C,
Right,
it had wire. So I was thinking about making a little bit of an update to it that kind of had a nod to our laddering and our wrap bracelets. And so this is kind of my adaptation of Brittany's really great music cuff. So we've called this Off the Cuff. And you can see the components.
I put a picture
great.
up of it.
Thank
so
you, Janice.
If you want to.
And you can see this is a piece that's done in 4mm, and you could go to our class handouts and download the PDF. And
Or just go to the search bar.
go to the
put in
search
music
bar,
cuff,
and there it is.
and then hit return.
Especially if you know how to spell it. Yeah, so funny.
Right.
But you can see Brittany's used the 1.5 millimeter leather, and she's used regular wire, a 24 gauge wire.
Should I open up the PDF?
Yeah, do.
So that we can just see. So here's all the materials.
Yeah.
And then she used the leather crimp at
The
the
leather
end.
crimps. So it's a great version, a great adaptation.
See, here's how
Yeah.
she did
How she did it.
Yeah.
And I have one right here that I'm going to show you how to do that as well. Question, Gracie?
Oh, Christine just said these little bowls are called pinch bowls when you look them up online.
Oh,
So
okay.
she's-
Thank you.
She just called them pinch bowls.
I love it. So let's take a look at. First, I want to talk about the wire choices that I made.
Okay.
And the wire that I used in the original music notes, it was 24 gauge wire here that we used. And I think I remade this cuff. How many times did I make this cuff, Gracie?
Many times.
Many times.
I'm going to say maybe a
Like 3
dozen.
times. Well,
no, you did a lot
did
of
I?
renditions.
I feel
yeah.
like but you know, that's how we perfect it. So I started with this 24 gauge wire, and like in the music notes, what I did was I got my 24 gauge and I just made some wire loops here at the end. Okay. And then I started to play around with our beads, and this is when the bugles had just come in. So I started to play around with some of my favorites.
They're right under
There they are, under my little pinch bowl. I started to play around with some of my favorites here, and just to see what would fit on that wire. And this, you guys, is a perfect project to start experimenting and doing kind of your own rendition of these pieces. But what I also noticed when I strung all of these up together, the look that I was trying to go for was something that was fairly rigid and fairly uniform. So I felt like I was getting a lot of bending with this 24 gauge. So I scrapped that idea and I went to eye pins. Now the eye pins have been tempered so that they are stiffer and more work hardened, so they're not, oh thanks JP, so they're not as loosey-goosey or as easy to bendable, pliable, yes, malleable, that's the word I was reaching for. But with our eye pins, and you've seen me do this before, you can see that they do sometimes come a little crookedy or a little rumply. What you can do is I hold that eye pin in my chain nose plier, and through the magic of this nylon jawed wire straightener, see how super straight that wire gets? That's really, even from this one to this one, can you see the difference?
Jackie says she wishes she could be as comfortable with wire as you, Kate.
Oh, well, wire's my spirit animal, you guys.
Jackie, get behind me. I'm in line in front of you to get more comfortable with it.
Wire, you know, from the very first day, it was in the very first days back in 1992 when I started working at the Bead Shop. Mia, our old class director, said, I'm going to show you how to wire wrap something, Kate. You've got to learn how to wire wrap. And I had never known how to wire wrap before. And I picked up those pliers, made a wire wrap, and Mia looked at it and said, well, that was perfect. And I think that really, wire was just my jam. You know, it was my thing. So wire and I have been very close ever since. So can you see how I've lined these up, you guys, on that eye pin? I'm going to do the same thing with this guy. Now, this is a really, and Janice pulled some of the beads over there and we can share them with you, but these are a lot, you know, just depending on your colorway, the colors you like, you can make different designs. I'm going to use these. Nope, those are too small, actually.
Which do you want?
I want, I'll just use this guy here.
Okay.
And maybe, could I have a couple of the wampum, maybe?
Yeah.
This literally is off the cuff. So as I start to line things up, I chose, let me backtrack here and tell you a little bit about my thinking. This eye pin I used something small at the end of the eye pin, because if it was like a bugle or a longer bead and this eye pin was opened a little bit, that it would maybe fall down into there and wouldn't sit quite as nicely. So I wanted something to kind of start off the sentence. So I started off my sentence with my favorite bead in the whole wide world, these little shadows. Now this could also be a 6/0 or an 8/0 bead, anything that's small and anything that fits on this wire, okay? Then you can just kind of what we call auditioning the beads, or at least it's what I call auditioning the beads. And here's our little 4mm fire polish, which is also perfect. And I can see how they might start stacking up.
And Kate, when you use the wire straightener and run it along the wire, does that also temper it a bit?
It does. It actually does work harden, and that's a really good observation, Janice. It does. Anytime you start to run your wire, work your wire or wrap your wire, movement does start to work harden it. So if you do have thinner gauge, like, here, you can take any of those, thinner gauge head pins, like see that guy right there? I'll just come in and I'll give it a few deliberate strokes of that wire straightening plier, and you can see it already has started to temper that a little bit more or work harden it.
Melanie loves the name Wampum. And that's,
Yeah.
do you want to name it, Janet?
Yeah.
Yes.
You name all of our products.
Pretty much, yes. Yes, I love making the names up and writing the copy and sharing.
Yeah, and if you guys don't read the copy about the beads and the products, you're really missing something.
Well,
It's really,
I don't know if you're missing
well,
something, but
you put a lot of really good information in those, I
I
think.
try.
You try. It's true. And it,
Now I'm getting obsessed on the inner hole diameter.
right.
That, and then the big project I have is the thread sizes. I'm
Right,
starting-
your next,
that's my
big-
next thing is why did it take me so long
Well-
to put 2 and 2 together?
so you can see I'm just coming up with a fresh pattern here with these. See how if I use this longer bugle and I have this 4mm, that longer bugle, I can offset it a little bit and go back and forth that way with the pattern. I did a lot of auditioning of the beads this way, and you can just kind of line them up on your, let me use the rice bead here. You can just line them up on your head pin, or eye pin rather, for this one.
Mimi says, yes, Janice, that takes a lot of time and imagination to come up with all those names.
It does.
Well, I'm always open to suggestions. If anyone out there loves writing copy, let me know.
Send
Yeah.
over your name ideas.
Yeah.
But see how, look at that wampum with this rice bead. Oh my goodness. Come on now.
Yes. Yes.
I can get this guy. So you just need to figure out your sizes and your length. So this one, it's a little bit longer, but so that would just mean that the cuff would be a little bit wider. So again, this little shadow could be any bead you wanted it to be. It could be this small one here, it could be an 8/0, it could be a 6/0, anything that fits on the wire. I'm kind of in love with this new back and forth pattern.
There's so many permutations. You can just and in Tricks of the Trade, that's one of the things that I talk about is the rhythm of pattern, and starting off with like a dot dash, and then you add to the dot dash something in the middle, and then dash dot. I'm kind of obsessed with patterns.
Well, it's
and
kind
how
of
to build
soothing.
them. Yeah, it
you
is.
know,
It's very
to just
soothing.
kind of, and if you're not having, what I say, if I'm not having a particularly good stringing day, that's when I do a lot of patterning or grouping of beads, or doing a lot of palleting and playing around that way. And that, at least I'm productive, and some ideas come out of it.
2 more comments. Melanie says, what a great analogy, auditioning the beads. And then Marlene says, nothing in art is perfect, but everything is perfect in its imperfections.
Yes. Yes.
That auditioning, I got that my mom and I, when we quilt together, we talk about auditioning the fabric for quilts. So it's something that we do for fabric and we do for beads. So I thought about then how to keep these guys apart. On the original music cuff, one of the issues I was having was that all of these guys were kind of running into each other and it wasn't quite working for me. So I looked for a bead that had a large enough hole that would go on my leather. So can you see, this is our regular shadows right here, and it has a ginormous hole. So I just used these guys in between, and I thought, so when I went in and I showed this to Gracie and Karen, and they really liked the effect that the look had. So I thought, well, I'm going to keep that then. So I just use these shadows to kind of keep things apart. But you could use any bead that's large enough to fit on your chosen stringing material. You could pop your leather down to a 1 millimeter or even a 0.5 millimeter to use some different beads here. And again, here you can see like this new little pattern I'm coming up with. This may clank into one another a little too much, so that's why I want them to just sit apart a little bit. So I'd find a bead. I might just use this same shadow, just depending on what I wanted to use. So to start off, super easy, you guys. I didn't do anything more complicated than just tying my thread, or my leather rather, onto the piece. Let me move this over so I've got a clear. And Janice promptly stole them from me.
Well, while you're doing that, I want to
You're going to pattern a little bit?
Well, I just want to just share what happens if you add like an 8/0 bead, which fits on this size.
And the smaller the bead, the more wiggle room you have. You can really nuance your size.
Right.
Because, yeah.
Oh, go ahead, you can finish.
Oh, because it's really important in this cuff, you guys, that all of these are the same length, right?
Yes.
So that's the thing. That's kind of why we're kind of playing around with all of these lengths, because if one is a little longer and one's a little shorter, you may get a wavy edge, and that may not be a bad thing if you're doing that, you know, deliberately, but you don't want it to be too wavy. You want it to all lay pretty even.
Yeah, you want it pretty close. You want it pretty close. It can be off a little bit because even on this cuff,
they're a little, you can see like that
some
one.
Of them are, I
maybe,
mean,
or that
we're
one.
human. We're totally human, so it's not going to be perfect. But
Corky wanted to know if we have a video on making these eye pins, but then Geeta posted the link to how to make rosary loops, but didn't she use the ones that were already, that we sell, the eye pins?
Yeah, so these are pre-made eye pins already, and we just have to do the loop on the other side. And I'm going to do that loop, Corky, for you next. I'm going to show you how I measure that, and it'll be really easy for you. You also might want to take look at our Facebook Live on Earring Basics. I rosary loop till the cows come home on that one, and you can find all of that on our Facebook Live page on our beadshop.com website.
Drea also mentions that the skill builders at the bottom of the off the cuff handle.
Yeah. And Janice, you were going to mention something?
was I?
I don't know.
See, I already forgot.
She's in patterning world, deep in patterning world.
Well, what I was going to say in terms of, let me get this and show this, is that part of what you have done so successfully is that you've also created a pattern on your eye pin that snugs up against this based on the width of the shadow bead. So you could do like a really smooth, like this is, I just created this, it's not really straight. But using like an 8/0, you could make a pattern like that. I just added a size 8, the matte metallic dark raspberry iris, the name that keeps on giving. And
then you could put this next to it.
Just even the 8/0s. I didn't make them. I don't know if they're the same length.
They look it.
But
see how those snug. See how this is wide here and narrow here and wide here and narrow here. So it.
But then when you put that bead between it, it's nice to have beads on the pin that create some
negative space.
negative
shape.
space, but also don't leave too much space because then it's just going to look like a bar
Right.
separated by air. So
This is a nice pattern too.
oh, good.
Melanie thinks so too.
Yeah.
Oh, good. So it's just playing with pattern, you know, and then if you actually create like multiples of each and put them next to each other, then that also creates more pattern, you know, where you have the same thing. What you did is 1, then 2, then 1, then 2. You could also do 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1. So I could do patterns
All day.
all day.
Yeah, see,
Melanie
something
wants
like
to know
that.
what you mean by negative space.
So if
As we
you-
both jump in, we're all yes.
So if you had a bead, let's just say, Melanie, you have. No, I want to do.
Oh,
I just
sorry.
want to do
Sorry,
it this
sorry.
way. If you had a long bead that went on the leather, then when you did these this way, they would be separated by that much space. So they would, instead of being clustered like this next to each other, they would be on the leather and you'd have a lot of width between each one. If you use a something that's like that wide and you get a bead that just is that distance instead of a really long one, then when they're next to each other, they're going to form more of a close-knit ladder versus the ladder's steps being far apart. So the pins go this way, and then all I'm really talking about is the bead that goes on the leather that separates them. You want that to be wide enough so that they're not bunched on top of each other. And what does it look like? And maybe while you're doing this, I could string on a little leather and show maybe 2 of these separating so they
Yeah,
can see
you can
the
take
distance.
all of these
Yeah,
guys.
okay.
The other thing, when I say negative space, and I use this a lot, again, I'll harken back to that earring episode we did on Facebook Live. Not only do you want to look at the shape that the actual beads give you, but you want to look at the shape that the beads, or the negative air, or the air that the beads have around them. So my eye is always drawn, so instead of having a line, my eye is always pleased or drawn to something that has like a straight line and a curve and a straight line. So I always say that not only it's what the beads, the space that the beads take up, but the space that the beads have around them that create an interesting pattern or design element. So I'll put my little guy up there. And while Janice is stringing those up, I'm going to just show you how I started this knot. And it's just a simple overhand. I make a loop. This is 1.5 millimeter leather, you guys, that we're using. And you can consult the materials list. It's on the project page. There's the list of materials, but essentially I'm using the 1.5 millimeter leather here for this. But you could use any leather diameter that you liked that works with your beads. And also, like Janice's mantra that she has all the time, we need air around our pieces. Notice how, see that loop? I don't know if I turn it up, if you can see the amount of air I've kept in that loop. Don't put this knot too close up to the shank of the button, or else that's going to be a stress point, and this is where your piece is going to break the quickest. And so then I just started stringing on the shadow beads, and I just went until it felt right to me, till I made a triangle that looked about right. So I used, of these, I think I used 7 beads per side. Yeah.
And then on the other side, you used 5.
I
and you
did.
were-
To make it a little
Yeah,
shorter, I used 6,
yeah.
I think, actually.
Really?
Yeah, 6. It looks like 2, 4, 6.
Linda asks if you like the knot to clear the button.
Yeah, good observation, Linda. It's something that I kind of do automatically, but see how I made that hit exactly right? That's pretty much what I do. Unless the button is gigantor. then
Gigantor?
I don't know. I kind of made that up.
That's kind of a good one.
A good one.
Gigantor.
So if I don't want the button and the knot to be hitting against each other, so if the button has a nice place, or if the button has a nice place for the knot to sit, you know, inside it like cupped, then it would work okay. But usually with these smaller buttons, I do indeed make it clear. Good eye. So here's my 7 on one side, and I'll string my 7 on the other, okay, and then I'll start. So let's get to the actual making of one of these components. So again, because this is the kicker, you really want, whoops, that's not my straightener, here it is. You really want all of these guys to lay like little soldiers all in a row. Or little kittens all in a bed, or I don't know, something. I don't know why that. My husband and I are kind of addicted to watching kitty cat videos online. I don't know if you guys, I don't know.
Well, I know that.
Right? Gracie knows that. Those kitty cat videos. And, you know, the cuter the kitty cat video, the better. So we were looking at one that had kitty cats in a little bed. They were just darling. So that's why I have kitty cat on the brain.
Wow.
Yes. The internet was made for 2 things. How to
Yes.
bead videos
Yes.
and kitty cat videos. 2 things. That's all we need, in my humble opinion. Okay, so I've just lined everything up. And then I put it down and I check my pattern. And you know, what I did with this was I really streamlined this, and I just did like all of these guys, and then I did all of the bends, then I did all of the loops. So I really production lined it, so it took me a little less time. It's something that I learned after making this cuff 5 bazillion
You
times.
made it a lot.
May I have your chain nose?
And then I kept saying, "Oh, what about this and what about that?" And then
right?
you'd go, "Oh, I've got to remake it."
I've got to remake it one more time.
Right.
So what we want to do with this, let me get this post-it note. I want to start by bending this wire right at the top of this bead hole at a right angle. Now, in my head, I am aware that this loop is facing forward, so when I bend my wire, I'm bending it in the same plane that my loop is facing. If you don't do this, like this one is a little bit wonky here, it's not quite right, I'll show you how to fix that in a minute. But we want to leave about, this is about 1/4 of an inch-ish. Okay, that's about the size of the loop, or the size, or the length of the wire that you want to cut in order to make your loop the right size. Now, in my rosary, making rosary loops skill builder, I talk about marking the head of your tool here to be consistent with every loop that you roll over. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to test this out. I'm going to come in with my cutter, and I'm going to cut this away.
So how did you measure that length? Just based on the 1/4 inch, and then you cut?
Yeah. So I just lined it up on that 1/4 inch, and then I cut. Okay. And so now to make that loop, I'm going to be consistent with where I hit my tool every time. Now this is my first one, so I'm not. This would be my tester. I wouldn't cut them all this length. I'd test 1 or 2, and then I would go into production mode. But you can see I'm up maybe about 1/8 of an inch or so on the tips of my plier. And I grab the wire all the way at the end with my pliers so I can't feel any loop or any wire sticking through. And in a short series of turns, one after the other, see how this wire is looping right over itself? It's not going to the left or right. And then when it hits the bead, I stop. Then I take a look. It has a little bit of an opening, so I'm just going to come in and pull that opening closed and then straighten everything out. Let's take a look. And my goal is to have these 2 loops about the same size. And it was close. This one might have been a little bit bigger than that one. But I want to just double check and make sure that my loops fit through. The pre-made loop, of course, fits, but I wanted to make sure that my top loop is right. So I may have actually cut this a little long, so I'm going to put this back on and we'll do one more.
How do you know it's so long? Or how do you know it's too long?
Too long.
That's a good question.
Because this loop and this loop are just slightly off. That one's just a hair bigger. You know, in this project, it wouldn't make that much of a difference because it's pretty close. But let me see if I can be spot on.
Mimi's asking if a little piece of tape would do on your pliers to make
Yeah, you could tape it for sure.
Lynn says mark the plier with Sharpie, which
yeah.
I think what you do.
Yeah, that's what I do. I really do use a really thin permanent marker. And by the time that marker fades, I'm usually pretty good with my muscle memory for putting that on. Janice, do you have any of the little? I want to steal this back. There we go.
You want some of those little?
I got it.
I have lots of them.
I have some floating around here too. So here's my this. I'm going to start with my bend. And let me really be very diligent about where I cut. Thank you. Always cover your wire, you guys, so it doesn't hit you in the head.
Yes.
It's really important. And so here is my bend. And so now you also may be thinking to yourself, well, Kate, why do you make that right angle bend? Well, that right angle bend, if I look at this loop right here, that right angle bend is what forms this little curve in the loop. So if I hadn't bent that wire like this, and I would just start to make my curve, it would be a P and not a little centered loop. So it's that bend that gives you that centered loop.
Nancy's asking if you've ever used loop making pliers.
So Nancy, I come from the way old school version of using my round nose pliers to make my loops. I know that some people really love those loop making pliers. What I've personally found is that I can't get a really tight line of beads when I make those loops. There's a little too much air in there for me personally. And I like a loop that's really kind of rounded, and I find that the looper gives me a loop that's a little more teardrop shaped. But you know what? If you love it, go for it. I know people who really like it, and it's very fast to use. So see here how I'm just here on my round nose and up and over, you guys. I'm pushing forward with this hand, pulling back with this hand, and looping one on top of the other in little tiny steps. And then if it's open, I can just pull it in like so. And let's check and see. This was the little tip I was going to show you guys. If your loops aren't quite in the same plane, grip them, turn, and you can see that they're now in the same facing the same way. And they look like they're the same size.
Yeah.
Bam.
You know, I also think that if you, by adding the little shadow, the metal bead on each end, when you are doing the turn, it's easy to crack a bugle.
True enough.
And if your plier is up against the metal bead on the finishing end in the beginning, then you just, it's pretty indestructible.
Yeah.
You're not going to run into cracking.
You have less of a...
Right.
Like even with this seed bead, this one's pretty tough. But when I do, like if I were making a loop on this one, this eye pin or this head pin, see how I put my thumbnail kind of rested on the bead? So when I bend my wire, it's kind of bending against my nail rather than the bead. And then it's just a little helpful. It helps it just a little bit. And then I can come in. I just know automatically in my head from 25 years of making wire loops about how much to cut. But something like this, if I were going to add to an ear wire, that's just a perfect, I mean, look at that little dangly dangle.
Dangly dangle.
Dangly dangle.
Melanie wants to know if it would be okay to use wire instead of eye pins. and then just wrap the loops for this project.
Melanie, you read my mind. So let me show you just real quick here. If we're doing, I've got a whole bunch of wire here. So if you are making your own loops, and let me get some.
And Julie, while you're doing that, she says that I'm assuming she says she bought them. I'm assuming she means the pliers, the round nose pliers, because it was right after we were talking about the pliers that make your own loop. She says that your way is way easier, where you mark your pliers. She says it's more consistent.
Oh yeah, and I've always been of the and if you ever come to my studio, you know that this is kind of I'm speaking against what I actually do, but I'm a real tool minimalist, even though I have a ton of tools. I go back again and again to the same simple tools that are kind of tried and true. And that's just the way I learned how to make loops, is with these really simple round nose pliers. And I feel, that all the fancy tools in the world are not going to make your loops better. Practice is going to make your loops better, right? So here, to get to your question about can I make my own loops, so here's a 20 gauge wire that I've just pulled off of our craft wire. Okay, so if I'm doing that, I'll work harden it a little bit by straightening it out, because this is wire that's softer, so you'll have more issues with bending than you will with these eye pins that have been tempered. So after I straighten it with my wire straightener, my wire is getting a little more work hardened. Okay, so now I'm going to make my loop on one side, and I'm going to use this cutter. When I come in and I cut the end of the wire, and it's hard to see, I know, but it gives me a nice straight across flush cut with no burr. Then I'll come in, do that 1/4 inch turn up and over the top. One, whoops, sliding around, 2, 3, and I can feel it hit the wire. There's my loop. Now, you may remember from Facebook Lives gone by, our bench block and chasing hammer. I can come in and just pound that loop out just a little bit. It also gives it a little bit of flair, which I like. It flattens it out just a bit. I'm going to close it because that hammering opened it. But that really makes this loop very, very difficult to kind of slide open.
That's important if you're making like rosary beads, and you usually just use the rosary loop. We did have someone who wrote in and said that their loops were always opening on them. And just doing that little bit of tapping is going to harden it. And
yeah, it makes a big difference.
Yeah. I
And
learned
so,
something today. I
see?
didn't know that. Look at that.
I'm just
Dahlia
looking for-
says she loves this bracelet, but she's never worked with wire and pliers with a sad face. And then
Oh.
Melanie's mentioning that she practices on really cheap wire.
Yeah,
to
you
learn.
can just get,
Yeah.
our spools of wire, or even, look in your craft drawer. I bet you have some wire there. I started, my granddad always had wire in his
In the garage.
in the garage,
The
right?
tool shed,
So
yeah.
I was always way into kind of playing with that stuff. So see what you might have at home and just start practicing, and if you are on practice pieces, you don't really have any emotional attachment to them. So it's really, you can mess up as much as you want. We promise we won't tell, that's how you learn. I remade this bracelet, like Janice said, like 12 times before I got it exactly right.
Yep.
So to hit the loop on the other side, let me show you how this might happen. I'll bend, I'll cut, hanging onto that wire so it doesn't hit me or Gracie in the head, up and over the top with that series of rosary loops or round loops. 1, 2, 3. And this is the mantra I always tell my students to hold in their head, that I'm the boss of those pliers. I'm in charge of these tools, right? You're the boss. You're not going to let those tools win. So see here how I'm hanging the rest of my little beaded component unit there off the side of my bench block. I'm just going to come in with gentle jewelry making taps. I'm holding it off the side, not taps like we'd be building a house, or I could flip it over and use the ball side where it's even smaller. Just little light taps. Can you see how I've managed to hammer that loop? It always opens just a little bit when you hammer, so that's okay. You can just close it up.
Melanie wants to know
Flatten
if it's
it out.
necessary. Can you hammer out your eye pins?
Do you need to hammer?
I don't need to. No,
Okay.
these I don't, though you could already made ones. If I wanted to, I could. But since these have been hardened, it's not gonna...
The wire's hard.
Yeah, the wire's hardened. And, you know, you could even get away with working with this 20 gauge without hardening these wires. But especially, like, if I were making an earring or something, look at how cool that flattened loop looks. So it's just a little added extra, and you can kind of be creative with that.
And another reason to not put a bugle bead right at the end.
Right at
is
the
if you're
end, because
hammering.
hammering that bugle bead is going to explode into
Right,
5 million
right.
pieces. So to show you how to finish this off, and Janice has
You want to
some,
show this?
yeah, I do, and we can kind of show how to end it here. So what Janice used, and you can see she used a larger button, like getting back to that, I think Lynn, you had that question of where does the knot clear for the button. Janice used a larger button, and her knot is sitting just on the inside, so it's
I just
sitting there.
threw the
Well,
threw the
but
knot in.
it's-
Yeah.
But it's a good placement for that knot.
And then I just, this was just to quickly be able to make a triangle. I used the wampum.
But it's nice for the wampum there. I think it
Yeah.
looks good.
So this is what I was talking about, is that the distance of the beads here will inform the pattern here. And then what I did here is, what does it look like if you add two of
Two
the
shadows?
shadows? It looks that distance. And then if you, just like you did on Off the Cuff, you just used one shadow, then they come together. And it's just the right distance so that these beads are not laying on top of each other. So, but it does make a difference. Whatever bead you use here will inform your pattern.
Right, the pattern.
Yeah.
And what you could do here, I like this space. That center bead could be a bead that's
It could
wider.
be really wide. Yeah, you could do a lot of different things. It
This
could
is
be
a
wide
great
on
bead,
this
the
one,
wampum.
and then it could be on this one. It could be wide here and wide,
Wide
here
there.
and skinny, and then wide, skinny, skinny, so that they fit inside each other.
And this was the 1 millimeter leather.
No, it's
Janice?
1.5 Greek though.
1.5
It's the
Greek.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
gotcha.
a sage gray.
So it's it feels just like we talked
Yeah.
about the leather last show. I think depending on what it's coated with, sometimes makes the difference.
Well, you use
I
metallic.
use metallic, so it's a
pyrite.
little thicker.
It's heavier. Yeah, it's 1.5 too. Yeah,
Looks
so.
great. So then to finish it off, I'm just going to do that with this here, since I have this little piece in front of me. I need the big, may I have your,
Sure. Here are the shadows.
I'll take them.
Yeah.
Mimi says, Janice, we think alike. I was wondering what it looked like with wampum beads on the ends.
Oh.
And she also says that last week she thinks we mentioned using this off the cuff as a choker, and she said it would look very woman in gold.
It would,
Yes.
yes.
And she just now asked, how about some chain at the ends?
Yeah,
You
chain, yeah, and you could also, I don't know, here, I don't know. It would be,
Well, if you put two loops at the end, it would be adjustable. One of the things I've found with chokers is that depending on how many oysters and French fries you eat during the day, your neck will get a little wider with the salt content. So the beauty of doing a leather choker is it's going to breathe.
you have a little more room.
Right, but you could start this instead of with a button. You could use a hook, and then on the other side, you could.
We could crimp it
You could
with a loop end, or
you could add chain into that right before the loop. You could add a piece of chain in and then
Make it
tie the
adjustable.
knot. Yeah, if you wanted. Sure.
A good tip also for stringing the leather, you guys, and some of you may know this, but I'm going to angle cut this with my cutter. And this is another little trick that I do when I'm stringing things that are on a strand. I know that I need to get 5 beads on here, so I'll go 2, 4, 5. I'll pull them off so that they're lined up like this, and then I can just slide them right on, so it doesn't take any time to string smaller beads that way. Okay, so there are my 6 rather beads on this side, and I think I just did 6 and 6 on this side because I was kind of testing it on my wrist, and 7 beads made it slightly too big, and I wanted to end it symmetrically with this one and this one, so I just went with 6 instead of 7, and I think visually it's fine.
Plus, when you're wearing it, especially with a bracelet, you don't see that you just don't see the difference.
No. So I'll just come in and I'll do that same overhand knot. I'll knot it, make that loop. I try and keep my leather side by side so my knot is nice and even. And I'll just walk that knot down. There we go. And then to determine what this length is going to be, you can get your little Post-it or your little piece of paper, and I can see that it's going to have to be about that width to fit. So I'm going to pinch it right there on that mark, tie my knot, and I won't tie my knot super tightly. I'll just check it against that length. That looks about right. And then I'll check it with the button and see, I just want it to be able to slide pop through without having too much pressure on it.
You don't want chafing.
No chafing.
No chafing.
And if it's right, then I'll tighten it up, and then I'll go back and forth and make sure that's right. So that's really all she wrote, you guys. It's pretty simple and straightforward.
Silk wrapping would also look nice instead of not.
Silk wrapping would look great. You could also do a little macrame here on the ends. What we always like to do is put one of those. You could put a little shadow bead on and tie a knot like I did right here on the ends. Whatever works for you. You could also put a charm on the end if you wanted. So it's really, this I think is a great kind of simple project that really would do well with a lot of personalizing from you.
And Mimi's asking about the button on this sample. It's Secret Garden.
Oh yes, it's back in.
Secret Garden in.
Back in. And it's a nicer, slightly smaller size. So from 22 millimeter, which was a little oversized, we now have it in
really
18
pretty.
to 20.
It's really pretty.
Yeah. So I really, I'm so glad Susan out there, who's been trying to get me to get Secret Garden back in for the last 4 months or more, you're right, we got it back in.
Yay!
Yeah.
Well,
So.
Janice,
Yes,
I
dear.
think that brings us
To what?
to a close.
Really?
Yeah, another Wednesday.
Another week.
I'm going to hand you this.
Okay.
And let's say a good goodbye.
Okay.
And tell people what's up.
I have no idea what's up.
Well, I'll tell you. We've
You
got
will?
2 things
What
going on.
What do we have?
We have a great giveaway today,
I'm sure.
which is, you know what's in this
You'd
bag?
give away the store if
I
I didn't.
would, if she didn't tell me not to. Open this up. What's in here?
What's in here? Oh wow!
It's a strand of rice beads.
Oh, and these beautiful jasper.
the poppy jasper.
Yeah.
So what we're doing, you guys, our giveaway today is, those of you who know, today's, I don't even know what today is. It's
The 22nd.
Oh my gosh,
22nd.
already.
Yeah.
Today's March 22nd, and it's about 11:45 Pacific time. For our giveaways, you guys, if you go to our website, beadshop.com, and you make an order of any size, there's no minimum. You put in the order notes Beads, please.
Beads, please. Okay.
We'll add a strand of rice beads to your order, and that offer expires today at 1 o'clock. So you've got a little more than an hour. PST. PDT, Pacific Daylight Time.
Oh,
that's what we're on right now. We also have a 2-day flash sale that's going on. It was going on yesterday, and it ends today.
And it goes until tomorrow.
I'm sorry, it goes until tomorrow. You know what? It's because we did the newsletter yesterday. Thank you, Grace, for keeping me on track. We've got a 2-day flash sale.
Wow.
That starts today and goes through till tomorrow, and it's 15% off all leather. So if you want to do trail ride like Janice is wearing, or you need your leather for this off the cuff, if you put in your coupon code leather15, we'll knock 15% off all the leather in stock.
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah. So
and that's good through tomorrow.
Good through tomorrow.
March 23rd, 2017.
At midnight.
At midnight. Okay.
And make sure you guys to check your newsletters, because we've got a lot of fun things coming up. And Friday, I've got a great free tip Friday for you that's going to be a little bit of a riff on this project.
That's great.
So.
Before we close, your mom wants to know about your necklace.
Yes.
Oh, hey, Ma. Oh,
Yes.
and Ma, I want to let you know I got the jewelry for jewelry repair. And next week, you guys, please join us. We're doing a great jewelry repair special Facebook Live.
Everyone.
We've gotten a lot of you mailing in your repair questions. This is a piece that I do in my patina's class. This is just some alcohol inks on here, and we're going to be doing some stringing with soft flex we're getting back in. This is my version of bullion wire
That's just
to cover the soft flex ends.
This would look really great on me.
It would.
I love red.
Maybe it would.
I just love.
So it was a fun piece.
I mean, look at this. This is just.
Thanks. And you know what? This is a rivet, and
Can everyone see
we're going to
this?
be
Can you
doing
see
some
that?
riveting, you guys, because riveting is all cold connection. Turn this over, Janice, right onto the back so everybody can see this. These little guys that I've riveted with, these are carpet tacks that I've used to do the rivets. And this is just some heavy gauge, maybe 18 gauge
What
wire
is the
on
heart
there.
made of?
It's just a little cheesy flocked heart that I
Doesn't
had
look
in my
cheesy
stuff.
though.
Thank
It looks
you.
really nice.
And this has all been hammered using just like your bench block and your chasing hammer.
And what does it say? Amor?
It says Amor.
Oh.
So.
And
Thank
you
you.
spelled it correctly.
I did. Amazing, isn't it? Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I'm never going to live that down. So next week, Prairie. Try to get me to spell Odyssey. OYDYSYE. I don't know. But next week, you guys, jewelry repair is going to be amazing. Janice and I are combining what we figured out. We have 80 years of repair experience between the two of us, something crazy like that. So if you do have final questions, send them into repair.beadshop@gmail.com, or you can send them to me, Kate at Bead Shop, or Janice at Bead Shop.
Yeah.
Gita says, "Amor, you ladies."
Oh.
To you ladies. And Sally, just really quick.
Oh.
She wants to know, that's her tricks to looming right there. Clear Lake, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yes,
Crystal
yes,
Linen.
yes. I'm like just into 3mm fire polish. We're getting a bunch more in.
It's great.
I'm really excited.
Yeah.
Some new ones have just gone up, but
Yeah, and the colors
fire
are great.
polish. Wonderful new colors.
Yes.
I'm so excited.
Well, Gracie, that brings
Yeah.
to, you've held this camera up for over an hour.
Yes.
Our wonderful Grace behind the
Thank
camera.
you, Gracie.
Janice and I in front of the camera,
Yep.
and all of you guys watching. We really appreciate your comments, your
Yeah.
shares. We really, really do appreciate it. So I'll see you Friday for Free Tip Friday, and we'll see you next week for our epic jewelry repair.
Yes.
All right, there
Bye,
it is.
guys.
See you soon.